It's a good afternoon to you from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. My name is Arabile Kumete. We're live then trying to get you the latest on the market front. Very interestingly, it is earnings season here in South Africa, and we'll continue to try and give you the latest then from it. Speaking of which, Sanlam has come out with its full year earnings, a set of resilient ones that certainly have come to the fore. A 24% increase in headline earnings per share certainly does mean that they've worked very hard despite all the negativity that has, of course, come through. According to ASISA, we've seen an increase in the number of life cover that has had to be paid out as well, and even death policies, unfortunately, coming to the fore. Around 37% increase in the number of policies across that have actually been claimed as well in 2020 alone. So certainly a difficult year. The CEO of Sanlam, Paul Hanratty, joins us now as we get to unpack these numbers and a little bit more. Paul, thank you so much for the time. A difficult year is perhaps an understatement, but you've managed to pull one out the bag here.
Arabili, I don't think it's about pulling one out the bag, because that's not exactly our style at Sanlam. What it reflects is the fact that we're a very prudently and conservatively run organization over a very long period of time. And so we have a strength of balance sheet, a way of approaching things, and reserves that enable us to maintain the quality of earnings through this very difficult period, as you said. But I think it's just a feature of the nature of business. It really is the rock in our industry, and it stood up very well.
Yeah, so has this compromised at all the future of your business in any way? Do you have to do anything extra sort of from here on in, whether it be in the way of reserves, by way of putting money a little bit more away in order to get the right sort of stance for your future investments as well?
No, we obviously cannot read the future any more than anyone else can, but we've made our own projections of what we think is going to happen in the current year. And actually, we think that the excess deaths in 2021 will probably be 2 to 3 times higher even than last year. So I think the industry is going to continue in this year to feel much more strain than what you referred to in your intro. But at Sanlam, we've got very extensive reserves set up on our balance sheet. We also have repriced some of our group risk product coming in the latter half of last year. And with that and various other sort of reinsurance programs and so on, we believe that at this point there's absolutely no justification for us putting up any extra provisions. In fact, I think I'd go so far as to say it would be impossible for us to do so. The auditors would never allow that.
You've also managed to pass the 300 billion rand mark when it comes to new business volumes. That certainly does bode well for the business moving forward, right? Do you think you can take that from strength to strength despite a weakened economy that will continue in 2021?
No, I would actually really caution people not to read a great result. And I'm not trying to take anything away from our people. It was obviously a very, very good result to write more than 300 billion rand of new business, but the vast majority of that stemmed from very strong institutional investment flows across both Africa north of the Limpopo, but also here in South Africa. It was driven by some factors. I wouldn't look to that necessarily being a new sustainable level for us. We in fact are working really hard talk about getting our operational results, including sales, back to pre-COVID levels. So that for us is a focus. This obviously was a highlight, but I don't think, given the state of economies, that one should, think about this as an indication of a sustainable future level.
Yeah. Look, at a time like this, it's also still very important to try and still continue to invest in the business, right? If that's possible to expand in any way, then certainly you'd go for it, I presume. The strategy at this point, you still have the Ubuntu investment that you're trying to conclude as well. How significant and how far along the process are you in securing that one?
No, we've completed all the transactions with Ubuntu and African Rainbow Capital that we set out in our 2018 prospectus to shareholders. We've exhausted the funding that we provided to them to finance transactions. So we're in a great shape because we put in place the foundations and the building blocks to take some of our institutional businesses forward, whether it be asset management or some of the corporate benefits businesses. So, that work is largely, complete and in place to take us forward. So we now focus very much on organic growth and organic improvement, both in South Africa and in the rest of the continent north of the Limpopo River.
Yeah, very quickly then as well, your expectations for 2021. I mean, the rebound is going to be there, but do you expect it to be as big as perhaps some are suggesting, beyond 3% for the year?
Yeah, look, I think it's very hard to know. And again, one is somewhat into the realm of speculation. We do think that there'll be some recovery, particularly in the second half of the year. I mean, there are a lot of things are pointing in favor of recovery, particularly for South Africa, but also for some other economies in Africa. So we're certainly hopeful. But there are some very specific items that relate to Sanlam where, the risks are high. And this is the one you started the interview with, which was around mortality. The other is the conclusion of the business continuity claims at Sanlam.
Yep.
And of course, the world economy, as much as we're all quite hopeful and we see tech stocks booming, there is an abnormally high level of risk created by the hiatus that we've all been through. So, we're very optimistic about the long term, but very cautious about the short term.
Well, either way, you've managed to hike up those earnings, and the earning picture going up by 24%, so certainly still looks positive overall in that respect. Paul Hanratty, the Group CEO then at Sanlam, thank you so much for the time this afternoon. Appreciate it there as we unpack that earnings picture. Speaking of earnings picture, still a whole lot of other companies to have come out. Of course, yesterday we saw MTN, still some more though coming out as well, even today, of course then. So we continue to unpack that market picture as well, as we continue to try and find some sense of stability as to where the markets are going. Even Standard Bank